Welcome to the Straight Red Cod, where both hosts find women soccer fans to be very extremely hot. Gentlemen, I think that was a bust on Simon Borg. I'm pretty sure, Brett.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but we'll get into that later. I think Bill Archer pretty much already roasted him, and then I think Dan Loney had a follow-up article. It was pretty harsh, too. But before we get to, the week's whipping boy, Simon Borg, let's start with the whole topic, which I guess we've kind of labeled Hans Backe is a dick. And maybe that's a little harsh. The question mark at the end. Maybe it should be, is Hans Backe a dick? And the reason this came up, interesting article by Jason Davis, who wrote that Ryan Meara from the New York Red Bulls, he's their rookie starting goalkeeper. He's having a great season, frankly. But because of his having a great season, he got a lot of attention from the Ireland U21 team. And he qualifies to play for Ireland through his grandparents. Mm-hmm. So they invited him to show up, And Hans Backe just said, well, no, you're not going. That's. And then the press asked him why he wasn't going to let Meara go, and here's what he said. He said, I just told him we will turn it down, Coach Hans Backe said. He wants to play. I don't want it, so that's why. And he followed up by saying, it's stupid, and I'm not commenting on it. Okay, so it's stupid, Brett, and he's not commenting on it. And Ryan Meara, I guess, had to just suck it up. And he, in fact, said, obviously, Hans has a lot more experience in the game than I do. And he said it was better for me to stay here and keep focusing on doing well, getting games with the Red Bulls. And, there's some sensibility to that. But you had some more information on this whole situation?
First off, let's point out that a lot of quotes can be taken out of context. Mm-hmm. Him saying that it's stupid might not be pointing out that international play is stupid, mm-hmm. but maybe something else. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I wasn't there for the interview, so I don't know.
Well, he could be saying it's stupid for him to leave right now when he's on such a hot streak with New York.
That could be it all right there, to tell you the truth. He's a rookie. He just came out of college. He's having a stellar season with Red Bulls. And for him to go to U21 camp to play a qualifier, or to possibly play a qualifier, not even playing a qualifier, but possibly playing a qualifier.
Right.
The main point was that the author stated that they're not going to have any games during that time frame, and it's true. They have a regular season game May 23rd, and then their next one isn't until June 17th.
So there's a window there.
There is a window, and the qualifier is June 4th for the U21 qualifier. Mm-hmm. So technically speaking, just looking at that information right there, he could go and play and not miss a game.
Right.
However, there are 2 U.S. Open Cup matches set for that window frame, if you will.
Ding, ding, ding.
They have a game. All MLS teams have a game on May 29th, and then if they move on to the next round, they have a game June 5th.
Right.
So theoretically, while the Red Bulls don't have a MLS regular season game, they could potentially have 2 U.S. Open Cup games. And
right.
For a manager who has this ginormous window in between the regular season, Hans is most likely looking at utilizing his A squad for those 3 weeks in the mm-hmm. U.S. Open Cup, because I know a lot of fans, they look down on the U.S. Cup and they're like, oh, it's just a B-rate tournament where teams can play some of their depth, especially at the earlier stages.
Right.
But Red Bulls, and Red Bulls were prime suspects for that. They came out with unbelievably thin rosters for those games.
They need some hardware, though.
So they definitely need some hardware. And this, in all honesty, U.S. Open Cup, they already start in round 3. NASL and USL teams have already played. Some of the PDL teams are already playing.
Yep.
So they already start forward. They have a couple of games before the finals, and here's a chance for New York to push forward 2 rounds when they don't have any regular season games to worry about.
Right.
So I can understand where Bach is coming from with this. He's like, we want him. We want him in the net. He should be focusing on his career rather than a youth national team call up.
Yeah.
And go from there.
No, I actually, that makes a whole lot of sense. But it would have taken Hans Backe 10 seconds to clarify that during the interview, and this would not have, no one would have written an article about it. It wouldn't have come up. Jason Davis would have blown it off had Hans not been, or just not replied in such an arrogant prick manner. And, I mean, it reminded me of something maybe Peter Novak would say. And I just think, I don't know where some of these managers get off being this arrogant about things. I mean, listen, maybe they're just not used to how we do things and how things operate in the United States. But, if you look at coaches in other sports in this country, they're pretty open. They'll tell you exactly why this is happening or that's happening, unless, of course, they don't want to talk about it. But then you guys got guys like Hans Backe, and it's kind of like it's my way or the highway. And I hate that kind of attitude. Just, loosen up a little. Answer the in question. Don't be such a dick about it. And that goes for, and you know what, Peter Novak went on. It seems like every time, Brett, we say something bad about somebody, MLSsoccer.net has them, or .com has them on either for an interview or a special little program. Case in point, the week after we called Peter Novak, or I did, called him whatever I called him, it wasn't flattering because I thought he was being kind of a dick as well. They have him on, and he's this nice, cheery, fluffy, fun-loving guy, and he's on, whatever their show is on MLS, their radio show, the podcast. Extra Time. And he's just the most lovable character. You just want to give him a hug, And maybe they'll do the same thing now for Backe, because, I think I agree with Backe's reasoning if his reasoning was laid out like you just laid it out. Because that makes a lot of sense to me. Because they do need hardware, as I said. And this is an opportunity to get some hardware. Any hardware at all, if you're the Red Bulls, who are, for whatever reason, regarded as one of the top teams because they're from New York, even though they play in New Jersey. They're regarded as one of the top teams, and players of high stature and big names, they'll only play for L.A. or they only play for New York. So maybe this little bit of hardware that they have to get is so important, and I think that there's a lot of pressure probably coming from the main office saying, "Hey, Backe, we need some hardware this season." And he knows it. That
may be the thing. I mean, you look at it; they're spending $15 million on two players. They're looking at bringing in this third
another
VP.
one.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I mean, they're spending the money, and I can definitely see it being the case of, hey, you've got the big name players. Let's see some results out of this. Let's get some hardware. And in all honesty, U.S. Open Cup is the easiest route to the CONCACAF Champions League anyhow.
Yeah.
You play 4 games and you're there.
Right.
As long as you win them. I mean,
yep.
It kind of always boggled my mind why more teams don't take it a little more seriously, because it is an easy access to the Champions League.
I don't know if all the teams in the league want to play in the Champions League.
That's quite possible.
I mean, I honestly believe there are some teams that see that as a punishment, almost, because now they're traveling to God knows where. They're playing many games more than the teams that don't. They still have to play the U.S. Open as well. I mean, and the schedule just gets jam-packed. I mean, you look at some of the players who have been in the past just totally worn out from that schedule. The first one that comes to mind is Breck Shea. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's got to wear you out. And I don't think a lot of teams see it as it's worth it. Now, of course, the Don has made it very clear that that's a priority for the league. But that doesn't mean it's necessarily a priority for every team. And you're right. The U.S. Open Cup is the easiest way to punch your ticket into the Champions League. But I just don't think a lot of teams still care much about it. They're worried about winning. If you're L.A., you're
MLS. Yep.
Yeah, it's MLS Cup. And
it's Supporter Shield.
Supporter Shield.
It's the local prestige, if you will.
Right.
And and that's you bring up a good point there. But My last take on the whole Hans Backe issue is, in all honesty, perhaps the Juan Agudelo injury is still sticking in the back of his mind. You had a player who was a starter at the beginning of the season, went to the U23s, got injured in the first game, and has been out since. Although, technically speaking, it's worked out pretty well for New York, having Cooper and Henry in there.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
now you're looking at New York, having to play a just coming back Agudelo in place of an injured Henry.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is the reason why a lot of managers hate international fixtures. Whether it be seniors, whether it be youth national team call-ups.
Right.
It's you're spending a lot of money on a player, and then you're sending them abroad to go play in an international game where they stand a chance of getting injured. And then if they do get injured, they're riding pine and not helping the team out.
Yep.
So
exactly.
I mean, it could be in the back of his mind that this is kind of a frivolous. It's a youth call-up. It's kind of a frivolous thing for a player, although not necessarily a player, but for a team.
Yeah.
What if the seniors come calling, maybe we'll let you go then, sort of thing. But I think the big thing was the U.S. Open Cup and focusing on continuing his form with the Red Bulls. I think so. Thing.
Yeah, and then when you really kind of compare it, let's say that Ryan Meara continues to play this well, and he just may. And in that case, if he continues to play that well, they're going to continue to consider him regardless for the future Ireland U20 youth teams, and maybe even the senior team. But then if he continues playing as well as he has, you know what? Somebody else might come a-knocking and say, we want you to come play in Europe. And then, you know what? He might be the next generation of American goalies, and we might want him. So maybe this isn't that big of a deal anyhow in the long run for Ryan.